Is this not the cutest carrot you have ever seen? Foundational paper piecing is a way to do quilting where you use a paper template and you can use all kinds of different sizes of fabric and angles that you can't get with traditional piecing. This tutorial is an introduction to a technique called foundational paper piecing. And this is what that looks like. So instead of traditional quilt piecing where you're working with squares and rectangles and triangles, foundation paper piecing has all kinds of crazy shapes of fabric to create much more intricate patterns. And the way it's done is with paper that is used as the foundation for the block. Get it? So the name is Foundational Paper Piecing, FPP for short. Today we are going to make this cute little carrot. You can get this pattern for free when you sign up for my newsletter. That link will be below the video. In traditional foundational paper piecing, you would print out the designs, you would sew right on these lines, and then you would tear the paper off. So for every carrot you wanted to make, you would have to have a printout. I'm just not really a fan of doing it that way. I prefer the way I'm going to show you today, where you can reuse these and you're never sewing on paper, so you're not going to have to pull that off. And the way we're going to do that is with either a freezer paper template. And if you don't know how to print on freezer paper, I have another video that shows you how to do that. The link is below this video. Or you can also use a pre-made product like Jalili Studio's Maker Paper. It functions the same way as freezer paper. You can add some heat. It makes the fabric stick, comes off, absolutely no residue. The beauty of it is pre-sized, can go right into your printer without any fuss. This technique I'm going to show you works with either of those kinds of products. So let's get started. First, you're going to need the template, and this is a little carrot I designed. We're going to sew it in 3 sections. So the bottom of the carrot, and then the top is sewn in 2 sections, and then the 3 of them are put together to make this block. I'm also going to show you how to use Jill's of Jalili Studio new Duet foundation ruler from Riley Blake Designs. It is an acrylic ruler. This side is just like any other acrylic ruler. It is straight and thick for cutting. This dotted line or dashed line is 1/4 inch from the edge. We're going to need that. This side is angled and much thinner here, and it's designed to make it really easy to fold the paper. You don't have to have this to do this technique. I'll show you how to do it with and without this ruler, but it just makes things a little bit faster, and I want to show you how that works. This can also be done with regular copier paper. It just is a lot more time and labor intensive than if you use the freezer paper or Maker Paper or the like. And I'll kind of explain how to do that, but I would recommend at least doing the freezer paper. So I have cut apart the 3 sections, so the carrot and the 2 top parts. And then I have grabbed some fabric scraps. I'm going to do 3 different colors for the top, and then I'm going to use this cute orange polka dot for my carrot. And then we also need white scraps to create this. So the first thing you need to understand when doing FPP is how the heck do you figure out what size fabric scraps you need in order to get this done? So you look at the shape. I wrote the color where it mattered. So green, 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 and orange. If it's not listed, assume that it is white. So you need a piece of fabric that is going to be at least as big as this number 1 section, the orange section, plus the 1/4 inch seams. I would usually have mine be a little bit bigger just in case it shifts. You want to make sure you have those seams. So I would say at least 1/2 inch to 1 inch beyond that. So we have plenty here with this orange. And then if we take the same idea with the white, I have some pretty big scrap pieces, but we could check this. So we could say, okay, well, will this be big enough for section 2? Section 2 is all of this. So no, you can see I have it over here. So that's seam allowance, but it's not covering here. So this piece wouldn't work there, but it would definitely work for section 4. You can see that through the fabric. Or section 5, section 3. So for lots of different pieces, we're going to need one of these bigger scraps for section 2. So another thing to know about these patterns, when you look at them, everyone has the same numbers, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that is basically the order that you are going to sew the pieces of fabric on to each section. So the first color is going to be the orange. Then we're going to do this white section, this white section, this white section, this white section. So you follow along in numerical order. The dashed lines are just there for your reference. That's just showing you where the seam allowance is going to be when you cut this apart. If you're a member of Sew with Tara Reid, You will also get the pattern and video tutorials for how to make this cute bunny head. The ears are made with foundational paper piecing, and then there's traditional piecing done for the face. But this is a really fun block, and it is an exclusive in my member. I'm going to fold all of these solid lines. So I just line the thin edge, the beveled edge of this ruler up on that line, and then I just fold that back. I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to do all of the other lines as well. If you don't have this ruler, you could do this with any kind of ruler. I would probably use a regular ruler, like if you have a metal household ruler versus an acrylic ruler, just because your normal acrylic cutting rulers are pretty thick, so it's a little bit harder to be precise about where you are making that fold. Okay, so I did all those folds, and then I unfolded them. Now we're going to take the orange piece, we're putting it face down. If you're using solids, there's really no right or wrong side, so you don't have to think about that part. But if you have a right and wrong side, you want to iron the template onto the wrong side of the fabric. I'll just put it randomly on there. We'll pretend it's more of a scrap than it actually is. So I'm going to put that on there. I'm just going to apply a little bit of heat so that paper is stuck to the fabric. Now, before I fold that back, I'm going to make sure the scrap that I'm going to use is going to be big enough. So we're going to fold this back. And then you're going to come in here and you're going to cut a 1/4 inch from the edge of your template. So you're not cutting the paper, you're cutting a 1/4 inch from that fold. Now we are going to put the white down, and if it had a print, we would be doing right sides together. And I'm going to line the edge of the orange up with a straight line on this white. You can pin, clip, or just carry it over to your sewing machine. And we are going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam, which will put our needle right next to that paper all the way down that edge. Now, like any quilt block, I like to use a smaller stitch length. So I'm using a 1.9. I'm using a 1/4 inch foot. So the edge of the foot can just go right next to the edge of the fabric. I can use the paper as a guide because that needle is going to be right along the paper. Now I'm going to come back. I'm going to open that up. And now I'm just going to press this white fabric to the side. That will also be pressing the paper onto the fabric. So we have pieces 1 and 2, and now we're just going to do the same exact thing for the other 3 sections. I'm going to fold that back. Now, because this is so big, I am going to cut this white piece down. So now I'm going to cut a 1/4 inch from this side. And different scraps are going to make this look different. Don't even worry about it. As long as you're cutting a 1/4 inch from your paper, at the very end, we're going to cut around those solid lines and get it into the end shape that it needs to be. I'm going to line that up. And then another way to make sure your scrap that you're adding is big enough is you just kind of pick it up and make sure it is going to cover this when it's folded, because then it will fill it when we flip it too. So the edge of this is right here, and that goes past it, so we are good to go. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to fold our template back. We're going to push this white piece forward, iron that seam, attach that paper, and you guessed it, now we are going to fold this one back. Now, if you don't have or want to invest in one of those rulers, I'll show you how to do it with a regular ruler. You basically just need to look at where your 1/4 inch markings are on this ruler. It's these little dots. So I'm going to line the dots up with the paper and trim. I mean, isn't this easy? It looks so much more complicated than it actually is. And this carrot is a great starter if you've never done this before. Looks crazy. It's going to look like this when we're done and we have it all cut off. So we just have one more piece. Okay, so all of those sections are on. Now we just need to cut around these outer edges. And it's nice because it is ironed on there. It's adhered to the fabric. When you turn it, your fabric isn't moving. So everything's staying in place. So you're going to get this trimmed the way it needs to be. See how easy that was? And now all we have to do is peel that off. No pulling all the stitch lines and the paper out. Love this way. Now you're just going to do the same exact thing with these 2 other sections to make the tops. So now I'm showing you how to do it with just copier paper. It's a little bit more complicated, but you can do it. I have complete faith. I started by sewing the number 1 and the 2 together and then pressing that open. So with the regular paper, it's not going to stick and stay together. You're going to have to keep lining things up, and you want to make sure you're lining up from the back side. So if this is my green and this is my number 2, we need to make sure that this line is on the seam line. Then we are going to fold back the number 3. I'm going to grab a nice size white piece. We're going to make sure it is bigger than this piece that is folded over. Grab that and cut 1/4 inch from the edge. Take the paper off. Now we're going to sew these pieces together that 1/4 inch from that cut edge. Now when you're keeping the paper on as a template and you're sewing, it is keeping everything a little bit firmer. But if you're going to do this method, I would definitely recommend starching your fabric so that it doesn't shift as you're sewing it. Now make sure you have the wrong side up. Now you need to line this all up again. What we just sewed was number 3. This one has to be number 1 and 2. So you're lining up all these seam lines every time you come back. Now we're going to pull that back. I'm going to cut that off and use this piece. And then to cut, you're just going to line up those folds with the stitch lines and then cut on all 4 sides. But I just want to show you that this does work and how it works. So if you get a midnight gumption to try one of these and you don't have freezer paper and you don't have any maker paper or anything like it, but you have a printer, you can do it like this. So now we are going to sew these together with a 1/4 inch seam and press that open. So our top and our bottom and this line lines up perfectly. So we're just going to flip that down and sew with a 1/4 inch seam. And now we have a carrot. So you can just trim this to become a rectangle and then use it in any of your Easter or spring projects. If you just want it to be a block, you can add more white to the sides and the top and bottom to get it to the dimensions that you want. Or you could put carrots in a row. So many things you could do with this. Let me know in the comments what you will do with these little carrots. I'd also love to know if you've ever tried this before. And if not, have I made it look easy enough that you are willing to give this little carrot a try? And again, you can get the pattern for free by signing up for my newsletter with the link below.